Chapter 107. Ryan wondered how many lives Felix Adam Catvern had left. He had died at the Metagang's hands at least twice, once to Fallout's bombardment of Len's underwater base, and probably alongside everyone in New Rome when Bloodstream escaped confinement. Which should leave him with 5 lives out of 9? Felix. Narcinia almost rose from her seat, only for Mars to put a hand on her shoulder and force her back to her seat. The young teen looked at her adoptive brother and father in confusion. Fortuna's response was far less subdued. "Felix, you ass," she complained so loudly that Matthias winced at her shrilling voice. "How dare you come to a family dinner dressed like that? You look like a plumber." "Glad to see you too, sis," Felix replied as he rose up, swiping ashes and dust off his clothes. His eyes wandered to the table, meeting confused looks from the guests. "Jamie, Gi-young. Dad. You could have used the door," Mars said, his eyes tense. To Ryan's surprise, he didn't immediately go for his son's throat, perhaps because of his daughter's presence. "We invited you. And I'm sure the guards outside are for show. You would never have let me close to Narcinia if I went through the entrance." Felix turned away from his father, before noticing Matthias and Ryan. "Who are you?" "Your sister's boyfriend," Matthias replied with mixed feelings. His tense eyes met Ryan's, silently waiting for a signal. He too understood that the situation would soon degenerate. "Which one?" Felix asked, curious. "The right one," Fortuna replied. Her brother rolled his eyes, before looking at Ryan. "And? Who are you, a new member of the Killer 7? Ryan considered a dozen ways to introduce himself. As Quicksave, as president of the free world, conqueror of Monaco, immortal and all more dignified and flowery than the last. But only one sentence came to mind. "I'm bleeping your example." The awkward silence that welcomed his declaration delighted the courier. "Don't give me that look," Ryan said to Felix, as the younger hero looked at him with astonished eyes. "It was your ex or your sister, and she's almost as pretty as you are." "Almost?" Fortuna asked angrily. "He doesn't even groom his hair." "Whatever," Felix said, though the revelation had clearly shaken him. "Narcinia, come with me." "What?" the younger Vern asked. "Where?" "Away. My current bosses are a huge disappointment, but working with them will still be way better than making drugs." Adam Kitty extended a hand to his sister. "Now that the Death Factory has been burnt to the ground, you can put an end to this tragedy here and now." Narcinia didn't answer, instead anxiously looking at her father. This frustrated her brother. "Narcy. Did you do it?" Mars asked his son, his tone dangerous. "Destroy our production center?" Felix shrugged. "I had nothing to do with that, though I wish I did. Whoever blew up that toxic dump deserves an award." His father frowned, and Ryan felt a chill going down his spine. A mobile phone materialized in a purple flash within Mars' hand, the Olympian immediately making a call. Livia's vision was turning into reality. "Gi-young, don't you have anything to say?" Felix asked, but the woman in question avoided his gaze, much to his annoyance. "And you, Jamie? I heard about your promotion. It's not enough to close your eyes anymore, now will you help Augustus peddle the poison that almost killed your girlfriend?" Gi-young flinched, her fiancé taking her hand into his own. "Why are you here, Felix?" Jamie asked, uneasy. Ryan could tell the young hero's words had struck a nerve. "To open old wounds? I'm here to close them. Bacchus needs chemicals from your division to make his drug. Just by taking that job, you're enabling the death and ruin of thousands. Felix, Narcinia took a deep breath. "I don't think now is the time to discuss that." "Now is exactly the time," he protested, taking a step towards his adoptive sister. Jamie rose from his own seat, perhaps to stop him, while Matthias glanced at Ryan and waited for a signal. Meanwhile, Mars spoke on the phone with a scowl on his face. "He's here, Giannis, but he doesn't know. He swears he's not involved." "Yes, but please, not before my daughters. Some other place." The Olympian's face strained, and though Ryan couldn't hear what was said on the other end of the line, he could guess. Mars was trying to convince his boss one last time not to execute his godson, or to at least make the hit discreet. But Ryan knew the older man was wasting his breath. Lightning Butt was convinced Felix had provided the carnival with the intel that made the devastating issue raid possible, and his organization's myth of invincibility was in jeopardy. A brutal, public murder would carry a clear message to both his foes and followers. No traitor shall survive, not even my godson. In the end, as Hector Manada once said, Lightning Butt was a gangster with too much power. When threatened, the answer was always more violence and terror. The time traveler looked at the fireplace behind Adam Kitten, noticing the tip of a gun's barrel sticking out of the stone. I see. Mars sighed, his face dark and sorrowful. He looked at his stubborn son, the phone in his hand. When faced with a choice between disobeying his invincible boss and paying the price, or offering a sacrificial lamb, the capo quickly reached a decision. The click of a revolver's trigger echoed in the room. Ryan froze time, leapt from his seat, and pushed Felix out of the bullet's way. When it resumed, the projectile impacted on the wall, Fortuna screaming in surprise while Felix stumbled in shock. You should stop shooting people in the back, Ryan said, as he glanced at the fireplace. Mortimer had phased halfway through the stone, a gun in hand. It's getting predictable. Mortimer answered with another pull of the trigger, and the room erupted into chaos. The windows exploded into a rain of glass shrapnels. Narcinia screaming as Ki-young and Jamie hastily grabbed her and dived down below the table. Mortimer missed and retreated back into the wall, while the shards avoided a horrified Fortuna and a focused Matthias. The projectiles struck Mars, only for a Roman-styled centurion armor and mask of steel to materialize over his skin. The Olympian moved his hand over the only part of his body exposed, the eyes, and rose from his seat. What the? Felix said, utterly shocked. Later, Boomer, Ryan replied, grabbing him by the chest like a princess in distress, and jumping through the opened window. The dining room was on the first floor, and so while the time traveler gracefully landed on the grass below, his favorite cat rolled on the ground. The courier whistled, calling his Plymouth Fury to the rescue. Get up. Ryan ordered Felix, helping him back to his feet. A storm of glass kept Mars busy on the first floor, but not for long. A car's headlamps emerged from the night's darkness on their left, just as lightning struck the earth. Felix and Ryan looked up in terror, as a man of ivory descended from the night sky, shrouded in a cloud of crimson lightning. Lightning Butt looked down on the duo, his eyes flaring with murderous fury. But while Felix seemed to give up on the spot, Ryan wisely activated his time stop. Instead of moving within the frozen time, Augustus vanished from his sight, alongside his red lightning. One of Night Terror's illusions. Ryan quickly found the responsible party standing near the mansion's wall to the courier's right, his black bodysuit meshing with the darkness. The time traveler grabbed two knives hidden in his pocket, and threw one at the hitman. When time resumed, the blade hit Night Terrorized in the eye and made him fall to his back, screaming. His illusion collapsed into nothingness, as if it had never been there. Felix blinked repeatedly. Where did he go? No time. Come with me if you want to live, Ryan said as the car approached. But to his surprise, it wasn't his Plymouth Fury, but a Mercedes-Benz stopping in front of the duo. The right door opened, revealing the driver. Here. Livia said, inviting them inside. Quickly. Before the others arrive. Ryan almost took the bait, so perfect was her face and voice, even the clothes. Before realizing Cancel wasn't with his girlfriend. Felix, too confused to think straight, took a step forward. The courier stopped him with a hand on his chest. Livia always calls me Master Ryan when things are heating up, the courier declared. The woman in front of him blinked in shock and surprise, before trying to grab a revolver hidden beneath her clothes. Ryan froze time and nailed her hand to the driving wheel by throwing his other knife at it. I lied, Ryan said as time resumed, the imposter dropping her weapon and hissing at the pain. But seeing your expression was worth it. Felix quickly guessed what was happening. Mother. You ruined everything, you ungrateful little. Livia's voice turned into Venus, as the Augusty regained her true form. Great, she could also alter vocal cords. She attempted to remove the knife with her free hand, her teeth grinding in pain. "You're trying to kill me?" Felix stood in place, too horrified by the realization to even muster anger. "They are, but not me," Ryan said, and to his relief, his self-driven car was making its way to their location. "Now, apologies, but we'll miss the dessert." "I knew you were a traitor the moment I saw you," Venus hissed. "There's nowhere to run." Behind the group, the glass storm had ended, either because Matthias had been caught, killed, or something else. Mars stood at the window's edge with a cold expression, purple rifts and space opening all around him. The tips of swords, arrows, spears, tridents, and other weapons peeked through them. Mars could have launched them at the duo below and skewered them, but he didn't. Though it was nighttime, Ryan could have sworn he had seen a flash of doubt and guilt in the older man's eyes. But when he noticed his wounded wife, Mars quickly made up his mind. Ryan barely had the time to push his kitten out of the way, as weapons fell on them by the dozen. From what the courier understood, Mars could pull and summon items from a pocket dimension armory, but he had never imagined the speed at which he could throw them. The spears and swords flew in the air as fast as arrows, impacting the ground with enough strength to cut a man in half. Thankfully, Ryan managed to dodge the initial volley, reaching his car. "Get in," he ordered Felix as he swiftly took over the driving wheel, the superhero taking over the front row. Ryan noticed Fortuny grabbing her father by the arm, trying to keep him away from the window and briefly halting the bombardment. "Daddy, stop. It's either him or the rest of us," Mars replied, before summoning thick chains and binding his daughter's hands and legs. They quickly started to fall off her, probably due to her power causing structural damage, but it paralyzed her. "Matthias, Mercury, move my daughters to safety. The glass user is nearby." By then, Ryan was driving away from the mansion, moving out of the Olympians' range. Mortimer phased through the building's walls, opening fire at the car with his gun, but his bullets only grazed the bodywork. While the Plymouth Fury escaped the property, Mars leaped outside the window, a red Suzuki Hayabusa motorcycle materializing below him. It was a trap, Felix whispered as the duo escaped into New Rome's streets. The Plymouth Fury overtook two cars, bypassing a red street light with Mars in hot pursuit. The Roman cosplayer materialized flying swords and attempted to skewer his targets, but the distance was too great for him to aim right. His blades impaled the road instead, and Mars briefly interrupted his assault, focusing on closing the gap between both vehicles through skillful driving. "Dinners are more dangerous than battles," Ryan said, opening the glove box to grab a hidden revolver, "but not as much as weddings." Ryan quickly drove away from the suburbs in the shadow of Mount Augustus, moving towards the Mediterranean coast. The shortest path was through the Little Mareb district, but that would force them to get close to Vulcan's base. The time traveler decided to take the longer way through the southern neighborhoods at the city's edge. The homes here were in dire need of a paint job, and a mass of robbers and seedy individuals begging to get laid lined up in front of city nightclubs. Ryan noticed a woman vomiting on the sidewalk below a streetlight, a friend helping her back to her feet. Low-rent pimps and dealers openly hawked their wares in a back alley. The tall buildings and narrow alleys would have cast a dark shadow in the area, even during daylight hours. Ryan veered off the road to dodge a drunkard, doing his best to avoid casualties. Mars didn't share his mercy. When another civilian nearly stumbled on his path, the Olympian materialized a wooden spike inside a victim, nailing them to the street Vlad the Impaler style. Onlookers screamed in panic and fled, but the Plymouth Fury and its pursuer were long gone. A night of drinking had turned to horror. "He can teleport stuff anywhere within a 10 meters radius," Ryan reminded himself, as Mars started catching up to them, "but his launched projectiles can fly 100 times that range." Though the Plymouth Fury was no Honda-mobile and matched a motorcycle in speed, the narrow streets forced the courier to slow down to maneuver. Soon, Mars would get close enough for his projectiles to reach them. "Shorty?" Ryan shouted. "Shorty, you're listening?" "Rary, what's happening?" Her voice came out of the chrono radio. "I'm listening to the private securities radios, and they say there's a firefight. Let's just say the Augusti are in a heavy competition for the Father of the Year award," Ryan replied. "Can you pick us up? I'm tracking your signal. Move to the sea, and I will be there." Ryan opened his car's window, stopped time, and shot Mars' motorcycle in the frozen time. The bullets bounced off the Roman cosplayer's armor but hit the wheels. When time unfroze, the man almost lost control of his vehicle. Unfortunately, a violet flash erupted around his motorcycle, and when the light died down, all damage had vanished. Damn, he could instantly switch damaged pieces of his vehicle with spare parts. The transition was so smooth the vehicle didn't even break down. "Maybe I could touch a streetlight on the way," Adam Cat suggested as Ryan reloaded, his hands off the driving wheel. "I can blow stuff up behind us." "Now, kitten, that would be a terrible idea." Felix's explosions had been useful on the highway chase a few loops ago, but would be disastrous in a crowded area. It would be even worse if he caused a gas leak. Ryan didn't look down on collateral damage, but he would rather avoid having civilian lives on his conscience. Unfortunately, Mars didn't share Ryan's viewpoint. Now that he was close enough for his launched projectiles to reach his target, the Olympian materialized iron spears and shot them at the Plymouth, uncaring about hitting passers-by. One of his spears tore a prostitute in half, another hit a house's window. Ryan thought this would be a repeat of the car chase with Pluto 2 loops ago, but the previous race had been on a highway, not a metropolis at night. The courier had to take back the wheel with one hand to take a difficult turn, an enemy projectile grazing his car's paint job. If the pointless murder of civilians hadn't earned Mars the time traveler's fury, this callous war crime did. "Now you've done it," Ryan snarled angrily, before turning at his kitten. "How many weapons does your dad have?" "I dunno, thousands? Dad is a hoarder. Compensating for something." Unfortunately, as Ryan navigated through a tangle of back alleys, he noticed the shadow of two other motorcycles joining Mars. Mortimer rode one, and a helmeted woman the other. Since she didn't carry any weapon, Ryan assumed she was probably Sparrow. Felix removed his mask and wiped the sweat off his forehead. His smooth skin glittered as they passed below a streetlight, his beautiful eyes capable of melting any maiden's heart. "Who are you?" he asked. "You're on Livia's payroll." "Now, come on, I never sold my body for cash," Ryan said. "I give. I'm a giver. Also, you're an idiot." I didn't think they would try to kill me. I mean, they're my parents. I thought it counted for something." The young hero didn't even sound angry. Just sad and crestfallen. "Well, at least you've got sisters willing to fight for you," Ryan reassured, as they escaped the narrow streets of the nightlife district for wider roads. They were close to the new Rome Strip, but unfortunately, the riders at their back gained ground, Sparrow and Mortimer on each side, with Mars at the center. "But it was stupid to come alone." "I didn't," Felix replied, looking through the windshield and at the night sky above. One could see a few bright stars in spite of the city's lights. "Come alone." A great dragon's wings overshadowed the stars, as she flew over the street. The noise of a private security helicopter echoed above the road with the call of screeching sirens. For once in his life, Ryan was glad to see the cops. Chapter 108. The dragon cop let out a mighty roar, and the robber centurion answered with a spear to the eye. Wyvern deflected the projectile with her scaled hand, the spear's shaft snapping in half on impact. Determined to fight the law, Mars continued with his attacks, assisted by Sparrow. The Olympian and his accomplice launched javelins and lasers at the dragon above their head, while Mortimer outpaced them to chase after Ryan's Plymouth Fury. Wyvern, or Dragon Mom to friends, swiftly deflected the projectiles by zigzagging above buildings. Ryan watched her trying to find the right angle of attack, but she couldn't open fire in a populated street. Unlike the Augusti, she wanted to avoid casualties. A private security helicopter also joined the chase, though it was still too far away from the Plymouth for Ryan to identify the pilot. Probably nobody he knew. "Take the wheel for a minute," Ryan said, as Mortimer gained ground on them. The hitman grabbed a shotgun from beneath his cloak, moving to the Plymouth's right. "You're sure?" Felix asked, clearly uneasy at the idea. How couldn't he be? Ryan's car was a kingly throne on wheels, a sun that would burn the unworthy. "I wasn't talking to you, kitten," the courier replied, as the car's autopilot took over the driving wheel. Ryan moved to the back seat to get a better view, gun in hand, and aimed at his pursuer, after lowering the right back window of course. "Stick to the baby seat." The courier froze time, and pulled the trigger. Ryan hoped that the hitman's power wouldn't work well in the frozen time, but to his frustration, the projectiles phased harmlessly through the criminal. When time resumed, Mortimer closed in on the right, aimed at Felix, and pulled his shotgun's trigger. "Get down!" Ryan shouted, both he and his unwilling sidekick lowering their heads. The blast shattered the car's front right window, but thankfully missed the passengers. The blowback almost tossed Mortimer off his motorcycle and forced him to pull back for a few seconds. At this point, the Plymouth Fury left New Rome's nightlife circuit and dashed into the Strip. Glitzy casinos and luminous establishments illuminated one side of the street like temples to consumerism, with hordes of gamblers, fixers, and players coming from all around Italy to worship them. The peaceful waters of the Mediterranean bordered artificial beaches and palm trees on the other side. As the pursuit moved from narrow streets to a massive four-lane, Wyvern finally had the space to return fire. She unleashed a fireball at Mars and Sparrow from above, only for the former to summon a dozen medieval shields in midair. Dragon Mom's projectile melted the steel wall, but her flames couldn't hit the killers behind it. Mars teleported a futuristic rocket launcher into the palm of his hand, which Ryan immediately recognized as Vulcan's handiwork. The Olympian released a volley of fist-sized homing missiles at the dragon and forced her to blast them away in the skies. The chase continued, the Plymouth Fury and its pursuers slaloming amidst other vehicles, moving from one lane to the other without rhyme or reason. While Wyvern and Mars fought one another, Sparrow and Mortimer focused on Ryan. Swearing to protect his Plymouth Fury from all harm and his perfect run, the courier reloaded his gun, only to notice something rolling from below the back seat. A white-furred demon, smelling of antidepressants and gunpowder. "How long have you been here?" Ryan asked, surprised. The plushie didn't respond, an empty revolver within reach of its paw. "You've been playing Russian roulette in my car?" The time traveler glared at his wayward fiend. "The back seat is for love, not war." "Are you talking to a toy?" Felix asked while peeking over his broken window. He immediately lowered his head again to avoid a shotgun blast. Ryan focused back on the car chase, and froze time again. Instead of firing at Mortimer himself though, he played dirty and targeted his vehicle's wheels. The hitman couldn't possibly keep his entire motorcycle intangible, or it would sink into the ground. Ryan was right. The bullets hit. When time resumed, the motorcycle abruptly veered off course as its wheels deflated and threw its rider off its back. A surprised Mortimer phased through the ground as his vehicle crashed into a casino's revolving door. Ryan wondered if he would respawn like racing games contestants, but poor old Mortimer didn't come again. Sparrow picked up the pace though. While Mars teleported Vulcan-mate rounded bombs between himself and Wyvern to keep her at bay, Sparrow raised a hand in the Plymouth Fury's direction. Thankfully, she looked far less experienced with a motorcycle than a Mercedes and had trouble aiming. Ryan tried to shoot her, only to realize that his gun's barrel was empty. He almost reloaded before a better idea crossed his mind. "I always wanted to check something," the time traveler mumbled to himself, as he tossed his gun away. His kitten at the front panicked. "Wait, what are you doing?" "Upgrading my arsenal." Ryan grabbed the plushie with both hands, and to his relief, the depressed abomination didn't cut them off on the spot. The plushie didn't say a word as the courier raised its Simba-style in Sparrow's direction. Ryan moved his thumbs behind the rabbit's ears, and pushed. The plushie's eyes unleashed a bright beam of light as its ears lowered, while Sparrow returned fire. Two streams of energy collided amidst the four-lane. Now, having watched countless movies, Ryan expected a massive explosion, or for both beams to cancel each other out. Instead, they slightly undulated but still crossed through one another. Unfortunately for Ryan, Sparrow's laser hit his car's roof and vaporized it, turning his Plymouth Fury into a convertible. The plushie's gaze melted the concrete road and blew dust all over the four-lane, but the hitwoman managed to veer out of its path. A civilian's Ferrari car drove off the road in an attempt to avoid the devastation, hitting a palm tree on a nearby beach. "Damn it, not even a bright flash," Ryan complained as he raised his thumbs, briefly stopping his assault. At this point, the private security helicopter had caught up to the racers, its side gate opening to reveal a passenger. A beautiful Japanese woman in a tight, blue costume with a badge and a hat. Wardrobe, in a fabulous traffic cop uniform. The law had never looked so good. Ryan watched on with fascination as she brought a whistle to her lips and used it. Almost all vehicles in the vicinity shone with a golden glow, as Wardrobe asserted her authority. Sparrow's motorcycle, Mars' own bike, civilians' cars, and even bicycles, all abruptly stopped in the middle of the road. The Plymouth Fury's autopilot still worked though, callously violating traffic laws. Soon, it left its pursuers behind in the dust. "She can search me anytime," Ryan said as he looked at Wardrobe with longing. He immediately beat himself over it. "Must stay faithful to my first lady." He imagined Livia in a cop costume slamming him against his car's hood, and it solved the issue. Wyvern immediately fell down on the Augusty like a falcon on doves, barring their way. Sparrow took a tail swipe to the chest and ended the race face first on the ground. Mars, meanwhile, leaped from his vehicle and switched his rocket launcher with a thermal lance. As he jumped within 10 meters of Wyvern, he immediately summoned bombs inside the dragon's throat, her neck expanding like a toad's. It didn't kill her. It didn't even behead her, as her throat contained the blast. If anything, Wyvern looked more pissed than hurt as flames came out of her maw and nostrils. Her enormous hand reached for Mars, the thermal lance snapping as it impacted her thick scales. Her claws almost closed on the Olympian, but a shockwave propelled him upward above the road and let him slip through his foe's grasp. Ryan watched on with confusion as the flying Mars materialized a shield while in midair beneath his feet. A new shockwave erupted around his boots, pushing both the genome and his shield into different directions. Wyvern attempted to catch the escaping Caporagine with her fangs, but he quickly summoned swords inside her eyes in response. Dragon Mom let out a roar of pain as a fountain of blood flowed down on her face. Mars used repeated shockwaves to leave his foe in his dust and pursue the Plymouth Fury. The courier quickly realized what was happening. Mars was teleporting pressurized air beneath his iron boots, and the blowback propelled him forward. Wardrobe's helicopter flew down to intercept the Centurion wannabe, while Wyvern's eyes seemed to partly regenerate from the damage. Unfortunately, Mars reacted faster than the heroes. He summoned bombs close to the private security helicopter, destroying 2 of the blades and cracking the windshield. Wardrobe almost fell off her vehicle as it spiraled towards the ground. Wyvern immediately moved to catch it with 2 hands, while holding Sparrow prisoner by squeezing the hitwoman with her tail. Wardrobe managed to hang on, to Ryan's relief. However, the Dynamis reinforcements remained behind, leaving Mars to pursue the Plymouth Fury unmolested. The Olympian used repeated shockwaves to jump in the air, summoning shields to orient himself. "Kitten, we aren't shaking off your daddy issues just yet," he warned his sidekick, before pushing the plushie's ears. The rabbit unleashed a beam of energy at Mars, but the Olympian zigzagged between the waterfront and the casino to dodge. Unfortunately, the Centurion seemed to have run out of conventional weapons to launch, and he moved on to bigger stuff. He dropped a Renault A-Space French car on the 4-lane, and though the damaged Plymouth Fury avoided a collision, the impact blasted part of the walkway to pieces. Mars then teleported a Japanese truck, but the plushie's baleful laser glare blasted it to pieces. Deciding to cheat, Ryan froze time and had the rabbit demon blast a paralyzed Olympian mid-flight. The beam tossed Mars back when time resumed, but the man swiftly switched the damaged parts of his armor with spare ones and continued the chase. At this point, Felix grabbed the gun which Ryan had previously dropped and found bullets to reload it with in the glove box. Adam Kitten tried to support the courier with suppressing fire, but his aim was terrible. "Have you ever used a gun?" the courier asked, as Mars jumped behind a luxury hotel on the Strip. Ryan raised his thumbs, causing the plushie to turn its head at him with an unhappy, non-lethal gaze. "You couldn't shoot an elephant in a corridor." "I'm doing my best, all right," Felix complained, before noticing a new motorcycle entering the 4-lane from their right. A man riding with a woman holding him by the chest. Though both wore helmets, Felix immediately recognized them. Jamie and Ki-young. Were they friends or foes though? Police sirens echoed as private security patrol Humvees passed by the Plymouth Fury on the other side of the lane, veering to avoid the burning wrecks Mars left in his wake. Augusty guards in power armor emerged from the casinos to watch the chase, mesmerized. Both sides looked confused, perhaps due to a breakdown of communication from their hierarchy. In any case, it made the courier's task easier. By trying to keep the hit on Adam Cat relatively quiet, the Olympians had neglected to inform their mooks. Most were too confused to chase after Ryan and Felix, and it would take time for them to mobilize. Still, the duo needed to escape the city before Lightning Butt climbed down from his mountain and took things into his own hands. "Shorty?" Ryan shouted, as Mars reappeared above them. "Shorty? I'm here." Her voice came out of the chrono radio. Ryan glanced at the beach, and to his relief noticed the tower of the Mecran submarine peeking above the water. "To your left." Ryan quickly noticed a pleasure pier splitting the beach like a dagger, 300 meters from their location. 2 yachts were anchored on each side, sitting in the waters. "Put on your seat belt," the courier ordered his sidekick as he moved back on the driver's seat and took over the wheel. The plushie sat on his lap. "I hope you love action movie sequences." Felix immediately understood what he had in mind. "We can't leave the city." "Trust me, Kitten, it's for your sake," Ryan said, before focusing on the chrono radio and the road ahead. "Shorty, we'll jump from the pier in 2 minutes." Opened the back. His second favorite cat didn't like the plan. "My sisters, one of them is a serial lottery winner, and both are under Olivia's protection," Ryan replied as Jamie's motorcycle slowly caught up to them. "They'll be fine." "You knew," Felix said, clenching his fists. "She saw this happen. It's another of her plans. One that involves sparing your L." Ryan didn't finish his sentence, as Mars switched strategies. He launched 2 spike chains more than 20 meters in length from his hands, each with a grappling hook at the end. One embedded itself in the car hood, the other in the trunk. The Olympian had harpooned the car like a whale. Ryan immediately froze time, lifted his plushie, and pushed the ears down. The wily rabbit raised its forepaws in excitement as it opened fire on the chain grappling the car hood. The beam melted the links, but time resumed before the courier could turn around and sever the second link. Mars landed on the ground while manifesting a shield beneath his feet, water skiing on the concrete. This slowed the Plymouth Fury considerably, and gave the Olympian time to maneuver. "Kitten, blow the chain at the back," Ryan ordered as he hastily seized the driving wheel. The courier still had a short cooldown to take into account, and he didn't trust the autopilot to make a risky maneuver. "I'll try," Felix replied, moving to the car's back as the vehicle escaped the 4-lane and turned towards the pier. The hero tried to reach for the chain with one hand, but had to lower himself to avoid a flying knife from his father. Mars started to pull himself toward the Plymouth Fury, using both hands to move up the chain while launching small kitchen tools. He even attempted to target the car's wheels, but Ryan wisely had them reinforced against such tactics. Unfortunately, if Mars moved within 10 meters of the car, then he could manifest a weapon beneath the car and immobilize it. Ryan's car could take a lot of punishment, but it had its limits. Worse, Jamie and his girlfriend had outpaced their boss. The new Mercury had manifested a sort of shining red light in his hands, and reached the Plymouth Fury's trunk. Felix looked at his old friend's visor, while he raised his sword to cut him down. "Jamie," Ryan heard Felix whisper. "Don't, please." Jamie hesitated for a split second, before he briefly glanced at his girlfriend behind him. She said something Ryan couldn't hear due to the wind in his face, but whatever it was, her fiancé reached a decision. Jamie's shining sword swiftly fell down, and Mars' chain snapped in half. The surprised Olympian lost control of his momentum and slipped off his shield, falling on his right leg with a sickening crack noise so loud that half of New Rome must have heard it. He rolled on the ground, but had the presence of mind to try and skewer Jamie. The rebellious Auguste managed to move his motorcycle safely to the left, right as metal spikes manifested where he used to be. Right as Mars finished his crash landing, rats emerged by the hundreds from manholes and the road's sewage system. The Centurion attempted to teleport items to protect himself, but the horde quickly buried him alive beneath their furred mass. Jamie gave a shocked Felix a nod, and then fled in the city's direction while Ryan drove his car on the pier. The Plymouth Fury seemed to screech as it drove between yachts, leaden submarine rising from the waves 36 meters away. Metal plates opened on the colossal underwater vehicle's back, revealing a platform meant for transporting Mecran's mechs. Shorty waited on it, anxiously looking at her best friend with a water rifle in hands. They helped us? Adam Cat whispered to himself. You should treat your true friends better, Ryan said, as they reached the pier's end. Seat belt. Felix hastily grabbed the one on the back seat, while the plushie kindly put on Ryan's seat belt. The courier briefly froze time to calculate the right angle, before smashing the accelerator when it resumed. The Plymouth Fury reached the pier's edge, and flew. Without a roof and most windows broken, Ryan took the sea wind in the face, while the plushie raised its forepaws in happiness. The courier immediately realized he wouldn't make it, as the distance between the submarine and the pier was too great. The yacht's windows shattered, the glass shards forming a flying landing ramp. With it, the Plymouth Fury landed on the submarine's open platform, turned half-clockwise, and parked itself. The shock was so abrupt that Felix's seatbelt almost snapped under the pressure, while the plushie happily bounced off the driving wheel. When at long last his car had stopped moving, Ryan let out a sigh. The poor Plymouth Fury had been ravaged beyond words, its roof destroyed, its hood full of holes. Sorry to be late, Shroud replied above Ryan, not even bothering to disguise his voice. The sharp edge of his glass costume became visible, simmering under the moonlight. I had to get my girlfriend to safety. How long have you been here? Ryan asked with a frown. I caught up to you at the pier. The vigilante crossed his hands. I guess luck was on my side. Such a bad pun, and yet so appropriate. Riri, you're all right? Len asked while immediately rushing to his side. I'm fine, the courier replied, before glancing at New Rome. We won the race. As the submarine moved away from New Rome's shores, Ryan noticed Pluto parking her car on the pier, escorted by Auguste guards on motorcycles. The Auguste's underboss glared at the submarine as it swam away, the platform's roof closing in preparation for the vehicle to dive beneath the waves. As for the strip, Ryan had left a few fires in his wake. He wondered how the situation would evolve after this. Things hadn't escalated to a full war between Dynamis and the Auguste yet, but this fight had been very public. Ryan hoped that Livia could smooth things over, but the situation didn't look optimal at all. One creature didn't hide its joy though. I love you so much. The plushie rose to its feet to observe the chaos while the glow of the strip's flames reflected in its soulless blue eyes. They kept shining even as the submarine's roof fully closed. Nothing better than mindless destruction to cure depression. Chapter 109 Monaco's shores came into sight on the third day of travel. Sitting on a deck chair atop the submarine's tower, Ryan observed the scenery with a phone in hand. The Forbidden Land hadn't changed in the years since the courier last visited it. The city was all pristine and colorful, a nice cover for the horrors inside. Even after facing more than a dozen apocalypses, superpowered tyrants, and other horrors, this place still unsettled Ryan on a bone-deep level. Thankfully though, it seemed Simon had followed through with his promise. Fences and spiked ditches walled up the city, preventing anyone from moving in from the land. A fireball patrolled the coast kilometers away from their location, looking for the submarine. We're almost to France, "Darling," Ryan spoke on the phone, scratching Eugene Henry's back as the feline rested on his lap. The plushie played dead next to the courier's deck chair, the switch on its back turned off. "Do you want me to conquer it for you while I'm at it?" "I would rather that we do it together," Livia replied on the other end of the line. It had been 3 days since the chase in New Rome, and she hadn't managed to contact Ryan since then. The courier had felt immense relief at hearing her voice again. "But you can send me pictures of your trip. I can take a suggestive pose next to the Eiffel Tower, to start with." Ryan's phone bleeped, as Livia sent him a rather scandalous photo of herself. "My Felix is clearly too young to see this," the courier said. "That's 18+ material here. It's something to look forward to when we meet again." His girlfriend used a burner phone to contact him, ironically purchased from Dynamis. Thankfully, their mobile system covered most of southern Europe. Livia had taken great pains so that nobody could track down the communication. "Thanks, Ryan. It's nothing. I've saved more stray cats than men at this point." His girlfriend chuckled. Though she had moved on from Felix, Ryan could tell she still cared for him almost like a brother. "But from what you say, you won't join us in Antarctica." "No, I won't," she replied with a sigh. "Dad had me grounded after my current boyfriend fled the city with my example." "Now, you're making us sound like Thelma and Louise." Ryan could almost see Livia squinting on the other end of the line. "Did you and Felix, in a past loop?" "No, but I wouldn't have minded." A short silence followed. "Are you imagining us?" "No," she lied before changing the subject. I miss you, Ryan. Things will be stressful in the following days, and I would rather have you by my side." "I will return," Ryan reassured her. "You're my first lady, I'm sticking to you through thick and thin." "I know you will," she replied warmly. "But things don't look good on my end. The firefight with Dynamis put everyone on edge. Mars and Venus won't accuse me openly of treachery, but they strongly suspect it. My father blames them for failing to catch Felix, and even if he remains cautious, Hector Manada is considering calling back his son Alphonse from Sicily. From Dynamis' point of view, our family is on the verge of a civil war, and with the loss of the Bliss factory, this could be a golden opportunity to decisively end us. Tensions are at an all-time high. Enough for the two organizations to go to war. I will try to prevent a confrontation. The keyword being try. But you should send me the updated mind scans as soon as you can." He would. The duo had wisely made a brain map of Livia before the Augusti dinner, so something could be salvaged in case the loop went wrong. "What about Lucky Girl and her younger sister?" Ryan asked. Livia let out a sigh. "Dad has Fortuna and Narcinia under close surveillance, but they will get off likely. They are shaken, obviously." "No kidding." Felix himself had spent the whole trip brooding in his cabin, still trying to process the fact that his own parents had tried to murder him. "That was your plan?" Ryan asked. "That they see their own parents try to murder Felix, and that we carry this awful memory through time. I cannot make plans around you, Ryan, which is part of your charm." Livia chuckled to herself, but there was no joy in it, only sadness. "I can make provisions and try to adapt to your actions. I wanted to save Felix's life first and foremost. Everything else." Livia took a deep breath before continuing. It's hard, Ryan. Children don't often see their parents' dark side. Or rather, we don't want to see them, until we have no choice. It took me time to understand what my father was. Narcinia and Fortuna. They needed to see it too. For us to achieve a perfect ending. "Yeah, I think so too." Ryan chuckled. "I suppose Shroudy can expect a surprise wedding when he meets his lucky charm again?" Livia chuckled on the other end of the line. "After he helped save her brother, it's almost a certainty." The courier wondered how Matthias would feel about this, but something else occupied his mind. "What about Jamie? Ki-young?" Livia's heavy silence was an answer in itself. Ryan's hand tensed on Eugene Henry's back, as the awful truth dawned on him. "They are dead. When you escaped on the open sea, my aunt Livia's voice broke. Zimbato and Chiller tried to flee the city alongside Sphere, but my aunt already had them marked. Since you and Felix had escaped into the open sea beyond her power's reach, she went after them instead. They tried to fight back, but it wasn't enough. Not against Pluto. Unless one was a yellow genome or wielded an ability that violated causality like Ryan's, her power killed with certainty. Jamie and Ki-young had betrayed the Augusti. Though he would bring them back with the next loop, the news filled Ryan with sadness. These two knew their lives were forfeit the moment they helped Felix, but they still put friendship and conscience over their organization. "Don't tell Felix," Livia pleaded. "It will destroy him. He will have to know." Ryan owed Jamie and Ki-young that much. "Yes," she replied, "but not now. Please." "No, not now," Ryan agreed. "Livia, about your aunt, what are we going to do about her? She has almost as much blood on her hands as your dad. Hell, elixirs give people their dearest wish, and Pluto got the power to control death. That spoke volumes about her murderous tendencies." "I know," his girlfriend replied. "My aunt is my father's sister, and she will always push for violent solutions. I don't want her to die, Ryan, but I wouldn't mind seeing her imprisoned or neutralized. Same deal as with Lightning Buckman." Ryan had the gut feeling he would have to jail half his girlfriend's family by the end of his time in New Rome. "Should we expect another battle? Because your Uncle Neptune is the only member of your family that I haven't fought yet, beside you." "Really?" his girlfriend asked, though she didn't sound surprised. "I guess it makes sense. Uncle Silvio wants to go legit and isn't looking to cause trouble. Dad sent him to destroy Len's underwater facility, but he found nothing. As Shorty had said she would, she had the habitats disconnect and follow the submarine like a school of fish. She kept them buried deep below the waves though, to prevent the psychos imprisoned within attempting a jailbreak. The progress they had made on curing the psycho condition had pacified most of them though. Ryan had expected Saren to throw a fit about the lack of cure, but seeing Mosquito turn back into a human had given her something stronger than doubt, hope. She finally saw that the courier would be true to his promise, unlike Adam. Ryan sincerely hoped that whatever they found in Antarctica would help her recover her memories. He missed his old vice president. "In any case, to find you so far from New Rome, Dad would need either my help or Vulcan's, and he doesn't trust either of us anymore." "Not fully." Livia sighed. "I give Vulcan a 50-50% chance of running away. After her failure to protect the Bliss Factory and her obvious favoritism towards you, she knows Dad might have her killed too." "Does she get away if your daddy makes a shocking move?" Ryan asked, worried for his ex's safety. Livia waited a few seconds before answering. "Yes, she should." Ryan didn't miss the slight inflection in her tone. "Are you jealous, Miss Augusti?" he teased her. "A bit," she admitted. "I have seen the way the two of you interact. Don't get me wrong, I know you will not cheat on me or anything, but you and Vulcan have an easy sort of chemistry. I can tell you still care a lot about her. Even when you end a relationship, something always remains. For better or worse. You have the same thing with Felix." "I suppose so." A short pause followed, as Livia tried to find her words. "Don't get killed in Antarctica, Ryan. I can't see what awaits you there, and that makes me worry for you." "You shouldn't," Ryan replied with a smile. "I won't let you forget me." "I don't want to," she replied, which warmed his heart. "When you come back from your trip, I will tell you something. Something really important that I haven't told anyone else." "Oh. Can't you tell it over the phone?" "No, which should motivate you to come back," the Mafia princess replied coyly. "I have to go now. Cancel will check up on me soon. Will you have an opening to call me again? Because like all good things, that moment would end too soon." "Not before a long while," Livia replied sadly. "Are you sure everything will be all right on your end?" "No, but I will manage." Livia's voice turned warm and loving. "Come back soon, Ryan. I want you at my side. I need you at my side." These words were music to Ryan's ears, and made him all the more determined to go back to her. "Me too, Livia," he said. "See you soon, my princess. See you soon, my Prince Charming." The call ended, leaving Ryan alone with his thoughts, a cat, and an invisible peep. "You were courting death, translucent," the courier said, as the submarine finally found a stone beach close to the fence keeping Monaco walled up. "Sorry, old habits die hard," Shroud replied before dropping his invisibility. "Still, if you don't want your conversations eavesdropped, don't have them in a public space. If I spend too much time trapped in a room, I start seeing clowns in the corners." The submarine's cabins were comfortable, but Ryan needed fresh air to function. "I suppose you don't get excellent phone reception in a cabin 20 leagues under the sea." Shroud crossed his arms. "Don't let her go, Ryan. She is a good woman." Ryan looked up at the vigilante with astonished eyes. "Imposter. Imposter." He pointed an accusing finger at the transparent hero, while Jean-Henri hissed, "What have you done to the real Matthias?" "When the facts prove me wrong, I change my mind," he replied with a shrug. "She is not her father's daughter, and when you speak to her, your smiles turn genuine. It gets me thinking. Have you changed your mind about another girl too?" Ryan asked coyly. Shroud looked at the fireball above Monaco. "Fortuna is a better person than I thought," he admitted. Watching her stand up to Mars to save her brother seemed to have the same effect on Matthias as it did on Ryan. "Even if I do not keep my memories, make sure I understand that by the time I settle things." That was the plan. In truth, the disaster with Felix had taught Ryan something very important. Namely, that lightning butt would jump at any excuse to have Felix executed. For the courier to minimize casualties, he needed to take down the superpowered mob boss factory and organization in quick succession. Ryan had the gut feeling his perfect run would be a speedy one. In any case, they had reached their current destination. The submarine docked along a pier of rock, and its presence quickly caught the locals' attention. A military jeep drove on the stone beach from the hills near Monaco, driven by a familiar face. Simon had gained a few years since Ryan last saw him, but he remained a colossus built like Mr. Universe. While forced to use scavenged American football pads in Monaco, the soldier had upgraded his equipment to a pre-last Easter military suit, including a reinforced vest, night goggles, a helmet, and a host of pistols, grenades, and other weapons. He still kept his trusty old shotgun, and pointed it at the submarine's crew before recognizing Ryan. "Petit riddle," Simon said while stepping down from his car. "Nom-de-Dieu, what are you doing here?" "I've come to conquer France," Ryan replied as he rose from his seat, carrying a Jean-Henri in his arms. "Where is your white flag?" Simon responded by opening fire, the bullet moving within an inch of Ryan's face. A decade of practice on clowns had made the old man a terrifying shot. He could have blown the courier's skull if he had wanted to. "You were saying?" the old soldier asked. "You aren't messing with any France here, Petit Riddle. You're messing with the Sixth Republic's France." "Careful, Ryan, I have French ancestry too," Shroud said with a joking tone. "That would explain your propensity for turning invisible in the thick of battle," Ryan replied, though he knew France had won twice as many battles as it had lost. The courier leapt from the submarine's tower to land on the shore, Simon still pointing his gun at him. "Will you accept a Jean-Paul Sartre book as an apology?" "Mayhaps, I have half his stuff already," Simon replied, before lowering his weapon. Instead of slaying Ryan where he stood, he kindly patted him on the back. "Good to see you again, friend. Time flies by." If only he knew. From his point of view, they hadn't met in around 3 years, but Ryan had seen centuries pass. Yet Monaco had a special place in his heart. For all its horrors, the place and the people the courier met within made him the man he was today. "Who is this, some kind of windshield at?" Simon asked, as Shroud landed on the shore. Matthias let out a sigh, removing his helmet to reveal the man underneath. "Never heard that one before. My name is Matthias Martel." "Oh, a fellow Frenchman?" Simon's voice softened up, clearly happy to meet with a lost countryman. "You're welcome to settle here, if you wish. We need people to man my fence and keep people out. Got some help from a fiery genome, but he will move out soon. Ryan's eyes wandered to the fence outside Monaco, and at the fiery figure overseeing the area from above. He wouldn't risk anything as long as he didn't touch the ground, but... Any clowns wandered out? The courier asked. No, but some idiots always try to climb up the fence. Simon snickered. Nobody succeeded on my watch, but I'm tempted to let them. I mean, if they still insist on going to that cursed place after all the warnings, then it's just natural selection at work. We, Shroud said, while Len and little Sarah climbed out of the submarine behind them. You said we needed people to help with the fence. Yeah, we've got a network of communities springing up around the coast. We're trying to recreate a new French government by linking settlements, starting with the coast. Simon glanced at Ryan. Martine is in the running for the role of president. Never thought I would see that day coming. She would be perfect for the job, Ryan said. That woman, though lacking powers, had managed to keep the Sweetstown community functioning while they were trapped in Monaco. If anyone could rebuild France, it was her. The courier waved a hand at Len and Sarah. Simon, this is Commissar Len and the Communist Youth. Len, Sarah, this is Sheriff Simon. Len? The girl you were looking for. Simon nodded at Len, who shyly smiled. Yeah, she looks like a lefty all right. I like to read Engels though. I have all his texts, Len said while nodding. I'm happy to make your acquaintance, Mr. Simon. You're old, little Sarah said, whistling at Simon. I've never met someone that old. A steady diet of shrimp sharpens the body and mind, Simon replied with a shrug. If Monaco couldn't kill him, nothing would. Except smoke and alcoholism. I had a granddaughter your age once. That takes me back. Do you like kids? Ryan asked mirthfully. Orphaned kids? Do I look like a priest to you? Simon deadpanned, causing Matthias to snort. Well, the only one I've met in Italy yet is dealing drugs, Ryan said with a shrug. We're going to a dangerous place and we're looking for someone to keep the kids while we're away. Simon snickered. A place more dangerous than this one? We planned to make a stop at the Canaries and get some sunburns, but we didn't have the budget for a full holiday, Ryan explained. Even if he could turn back time, the possibility of a war between Dynamis and the Augusti threatened to destroy Nerome and key resources. So we settled for a winter vacation in Antarctica. I would have chosen the Canaries. Simon crossed his arms. We're in Antarctica? Station Orphan, Len replied. As Ryan expected, his old friend didn't look surprised. You know about it, Mr. Simon? I worked for the French Direction du Renseignement Militaire, back when we had a bureaucracy, Simon replied. I heard the story. I thought it was abandoned after the head scientist went mad. Apparently not, Matthias replied. We believe the alchemist turned it into a base. Wouldn't surprise me. Fools and monsters flock to cursed places. I speak from experience. Simon looked down on Sarah. Do you know how to fight, little girl? Little Sarah responded by bringing a gun from beneath her skirt and pointing it at the older man. Wanna try me? She asked. Sarah. Len forced the unruly child to lower her weapon. How many times will I have to tell you? Don't point a weapon at strangers. This only amused Simon. Your posture isn't right, little girl, and you should aim for the stomach. Never seen anyone survive with a hole there. The soldier turned at Ryan. I'll run your daycare, yeah. And teach that kid how to aim right too. I've got bigger guns at home. You do? Sarah asked, suddenly excited. Yeah, military stuff. Simon smiled at Ryan. Glad to see you've made friends, Petit Riddle. Last time I saw you, you were driving into the sunset all sad and lonely, searching for that girlfriend of yours. Now you look halfway happy. Len bit her lower lip in embarrassment, while Ryan looked at the skies above them. Things change, he replied. I still have the Thus Spoke Zarathustra book you gave me. Did it help? Simon asked with a hint of concern. I thought it was appropriate in your case. Eternal recurrence and all. It helped, Though it took me a while to understand and learn the lessons within, Ryan admitted, a Jean Henry meowing in his arms. You knew, didn't you? Simon responded with a shrug. All I know is that I know nothing. He had figured it out before anyone else, and he wasn't even a gamer. Know what? Little Sarah asked, frowning at the older people around her. I want to know. Maybe one day, sweetie, Len replied kindly. Anyway, I've taken residence in a ghost town nearby, Simon said. I've got a wine cellar and non-alcoholic beverages for the little Spitfire. Want to get a drink before you go skiing? My treat. Depends. Ryan turned to Shroud. How far is the sun from setting? Look up and see for yourself, he replied. Ryan did so, and noticed a bright point crossing the skies. The light point that oversaw Monaco descended on the beach, a fiery figure of light and goodness. Little Sarah looked up in astonishment. Is that an angel? Something like that, Ryan thought, as the fiery being landed on the ground and melted stone beneath his feet. Shroud, Leo Sunshine, Hargraves said. You called for reinforcements? When you go to the coldest place on Earth, you better bring the sun. Chapter 110 Snow. Snow, everywhere. Antarctica was a land of ice without end, a white expanse of glaciers, frozen mountains, and plains so white that sunlight made them almost blinding to look at. It was utterly silent too. The few penguins and wildlife living on the continent nested along the coast, and left the continent's interior utterly lifeless. Clad in the Saturn armor, Ryan flew above the frozen wasteland with only Leo Hargraves for a company. The courier remembered making a stop in Scandinavia and later Greenland during one of his lengthiest fetch quests, but the South Pole remained a mystery to him. Have you found anything? Len asked him through the telecom. Winter is coming, Ryan replied ominously, as he and Sunshine flew over a tall glacier. Rary, you have been repeating that each time I call you. Because people must know. Ryan replied playfully. I mostly see snow, but on the plus side, I haven't seen any mosquitoes. Well, except the one we keep in storage. No wonder he never visited this place, there was nothing to do. I am highly disappointed. The courier shrugged off a layer of frost forming on his armored arms. I expected an ancient civilization buried beneath the snow, or maybe a mad scientist's base. What about the armor's readings? It actually picked up a spatial anomaly, but the signals are faint. Truth be told, the entire region reeked of them. Whatever happened here had permanently damaged the space-time continuum in the area. Sunshine and I are trying to narrow down the source. Finally. It had been 3 days since they reached the continent, and quite a few members of the expedition had grown irritated with the lack of progress. Don't do anything rash. Shorty, Rash is my middle name, Ryan replied happily, between dashing and immortal. Sunshine must have heard him, because the living sun looked over his shoulder. Woody comes to mind too, he said. Woody is my son, amusing my daughter, Ryan replied, as he turned left after his armor picked up a stronger signal. Leo Hargraves quickly followed. By the way, Sunshine, how is it you're not melting the whole place with your mere presence? I can control my own gravity and heat. The superhero observed Ryan closely, his shining gaze both warm and intimidating. Do you want to shed light on some unresolved issues, my stargazing friend? Though they had traveled together for a few days, the carnival leader had remained surprisingly quiet so far. The courier had seen him gazing at Len while she didn't notice, and his best friend had done her best to avoid the living sun. Bloody issues. The living sun looked away, glancing at frozen mountains in the distance. Is Len Sabino listening? Ryan had guessed right. Shorty, the sun wants to dial you. I'm listening, she replied after a brief and tense silence, with Ryan putting on the loudspeaker. I wish to apologize on my team's behalf, Sunshine said. To the both of you. What happened 4 years ago? Wasn't your brightest day? Ryan sighed. Believe me, it could have gone a lot worse, and you apologized already. At least to me. In the previous loop? Hargraves asked. So you believe us? Ryan asked. The living son hadn't broached the subject since they set off from Monaco. I admit I find Shroud's story difficult to believe, but I have seen many things in my life that I once thought impossible. Leo Hargrave's light seemed to dim for a brief instant. You are within your right to hate us, and I would perfectly understand. I want to say that my teammates only followed my directions, and that I made the call that day. If you wish to blame someone, it is I. Len let the words sink in for a moment before answering. Did you know who he used to be? That we were with him? Yes, Sunshine admitted. I know Freddie Sabino was a good man, and that he traveled with his children. Then why? She asked, though her voice didn't break. Ryan could tell that the subject remained painful for her, but not as much as it used to be. Why did you come after him? Why didn't you try to heal him? Your genius. Your genius could have helped. Or at least tried. We didn't think curing him was even possible, Sunshine admitted. And time was not in our favor. You predicted that he would cause a disaster, Ryan said, remembering his conversation with Shroud at the loop's beginning. Yes. Sunshine seemed to hesitate about saying something, but eventually mustered the courage to. And we had reason to think that he would kill you both, if we didn't take action quickly. Ryan could almost see Len meditating on these words, reading between the lines. If let loose, Bloodstream would have killed his own daughter no matter what, and the carnival saved her life. On some level, she probably knew all along. I don't know. Len took a long deep breath. I understand why you tried to kill Dad. I do not support it, but I understand. I'm not sure my father is even there anymore. If we can cure him, we will, Sunshine swore. We made a decision based on the information we had available, but now I doubt we made the right one. Hindsight is 20/20, Ryan replied. If anything, after seeing Bloodstream destroy Rome in the previous loop, the courier thought that the carnival hadn't been thorough enough in stamping him out. His armor suddenly picked up an electromagnetic reading near an icy rift below them. Bingo. Len cleared her throat on the other end of the line. Whatever happens, it will be my decision. Let me make it. I understand, Leo Hargrave said, as he and Ryan landed near the rift. Snow melted beneath the living son's heels, forcing him to float above the ground, not to fall. However, you must understand that if there is a risk that Bloodstream might escape and threaten millions, I will have to make a call. Len didn't say anything. But if there is a way to cure your father, then we will find it, Leo Hargrave swore, ever the shining knight. What dynamist it was. Inhuman. If we had known, we would have stopped it. You have my word on that. It's okay, Len replied. I don't want to talk about it. Not right now. I understand. I am sorry to have opened old wounds. Trust me, you haven't even scratched the surface. Ryan glanced into the rift, dark and foreboding. The cracks spread on for miles, an ice canyon so deep that he needed to put on the armor's lights to see the bottom. But most importantly, his systems picked up traces of violet flux in the area. Well, what have we here? Have you found something, Rory? A thin place, but not a natural one, Ryan replied, as he analyzed the energy readings. And not the welcoming kind either. What do you mean? Sunshine asked, arms crossed. This kind of pocket dimension doesn't just prevent intruders from moving in, Ryan explained. Natural thin places, like the one where he had his fateful date with Livia, often open during rare cosmic or electromagnetic conjunctions. But not this one. It also prevents what's already inside from escaping. In short, it was a second Monaco. The living son quickly caught on to the implications. She is keeping prisoners, he guessed. I can't see any other reason to complicate evacuation otherwise. Neither did Ryan. Bacchus had told him that the alchemist often set up illegal labs to test elixirs. The courier guessed she probably did the same in her center of power. Can you get us inside? Len asked, worried. I can open the way with my armor, and then keep it open with the resonators. Ryan always brought these devices with him on a trip, in case he ever found a way to commit clown genocide. This will create a pathway in and out of the pocket dimension, and allow us to communicate with the outside world while we're inside. In that case, Stitch and Atom Cat will remain behind on the other side of the portal, just in case, Leo Hargraves said, immediately making plans. The rest of us can look at what's inside. If the alchemist is smart, she will have defenses in place to repel intruders. You don't want to try talking it out first? Len asked. I would, the superhero asked. But I have the feeling it won't be an option. A sentiment that Ryan shared. That woman has killed or driven mad everyone who tried to track her, the courier said. And she didn't mind ending the world as an experiment. I doubt she's going to cooperate with us. I will tell everyone to prepare, Len said. We'll come back to pick you up, Ryan said, taking flight again alongside Sunshine. Perhaps we should have brought a robot army. They make everything easy. And that's the problem, Sunshine replied. When you make battles costless for those who order them, the results are always terrible. War should not be a computer game. Indeed. But Ryan still regretted condemning the bunker on their way out. Lightning Bud entered his full paranoia mode and sent soldiers to investigate the junkyard soon after ordering the hit on Felix, trying to figure out what happened to the Meta Gang. The risk of the Augusti finding out about Mecron's armory had been too great, especially since they had the resources to take it over. As for the other bases, Leo Hargraves had cleared out 2 of them by the time Shroudy Matty called him for reinforcements. With half of the Carnival deployed in Antarctica, the other members of the group remained in warmer places to destroy the remaining armories. From what Ryan had understood, only the bunker in New Rome had been focusing on R&D. The others were standard armed robot production facilities, and capable of churning out armies in weeks. Sunshine was right, nothing good could come out of such installations. With them gone, then Mecron's legacy would be buried for good. Gotta admit, I'm a bit surprised you agreed to join this side quest, Ryan told his companion. A quest? Like a medieval one? Leo asked, before shrugging. A cure for psychos would make the world a better place, and to be honest, if the alchemist truly lives here, I want to ask her a question. The pink elixir's release date? No, Sunshine replied. I want to ask her why. Ryan suspected that Saren intended to ask the same question, but with far more violence involved. The short flight ended half an hour south of the rift's location, where a steel facility waited half buried amidst the desert of ice and snow. The modular base consisted of 24 cubes of metal joined together in an L fashion, some of them breached. Thanks to Bacchus and Simon's information, it hadn't taken long for Ryan's group to find the lost station Orphan. The French government had stripped the research station clean after abandoning it, but left enough stuff for the team's geniuses to restore it to half capacity. Ryan guessed the military intended to reactivate the site at one point, but never got around to doing so before the world ended. For safety, the group had left Alchimo and the Doll with the submarine a few hours away in the south, moving in only with the group's fighters. Mr. Wave and the Panda, the only members of the team capable of surviving the terribly low temperature without special equipment, had made a campfire outside. And even then, Mr. Wave had to trade his fabulous cashmere suit for a trendy seal fur garment. Ryan's Panda 1 hadn't changed outfit, though he remained constantly in beast form. As it turned out, superpowered pandas were powerful enough to survive in Antarctica without power armor. Their indestructible fur and fat shielded them from the cold, alongside radiation, rainwater, and cupcakes. Ryan had checked. Once, Mr. Wave turned up the heat, the superhero told the panda, as the man bear gorged himself on warm seal milk. That was the start of global warming. Is it true? The panda asked naively. Though his power had given him a great deal of insight, he still had the adorable tendency of believing everything his heroes said. Mr. Wave never lies, he enlightens, the superhero replied, as Ryan and his sunny friend landed near them. While Sunshine lights the way, Ryan joked. Only in the dark, Mr. Wave added. Leo Hargraves chuckled, before glancing at the panda. How is the milk? He's noticing me. The panda lowered his head to avoid meeting Sunshine's gaze, all but putting his nose in his milk. Unfortunately, the frost was such that the boiling liquid quickly started to freeze on his fur. "He's talking to me." Leo Hargraves looked a bit uncomfortable. "Yes, I am." "You can go blind if you stare at the sun too long," Ryan said. "My Panda 1 is only taking care of his health." "Sifu, is he still looking?" the panda asked, too afraid to raise his head. "Don't worry, his vision is based on movement," Ryan added. "You should be safe." I'm flattered, but this reaction is uncalled for," Leo argued, highly embarrassed. "But you are the living sun, Earth's greatest hero," said the panda, as he took a deep, chilly breath. "I have a poster of you in my bedroom." "Heroism is not a popularity contest," Sunshine argued. "And you have proven your worth when you fought the Meta Gang, Timmy. Matthias spoke highly of you. In fact, I would like to invite you to the carnival. We need people like you, with their hearts in the right place. Of course, this is dangerous work, and I would perfectly understand if you refuse." The panda dropped his cup in shock, the milk turning to ice within seconds. The poor man-bear began to hyperventilate, falling to his back and rolling in the snow. Then he let out a squeal so powerful, that Ryan wondered if penguins could hear it from across the wasteland. "Mr. Wave believes you just committed pandacid," Mr. Wave told his confused teammate. "This is the first time I've gotten such a reaction," Sunshine replied as the station's doors opened. Len walked out first alongside Siren, both wearing their evolved power armors. Adam Cat and Shroud followed. The former wore a white second skin of Stitch's conception which covered his entire body, even the eyes. Somehow it allowed him to see anyway. From what Ryan understood, the protection was made of trillions of bacteria adapted to the cold. Shroud, meanwhile, had thickened his suit with additional layers of reinforced glass to keep the heat inside, turning his costume into a heavy and nigh impenetrable armor. Stitch closed the march, carrying heavy insulation clothing over his plague doctor outfit. "Are you sure you wish to come with us, Adam Cat?" Sunshine asked upon seeing Felix. "We are about to face great danger. If the alchemist truly makes her lair in this region, then she is certainly not defenseless." "I owe you one," the young man replied while glancing at Ryan and Matthias. "And I have questions I want answers for." "Me too," Siren snickered. "I can tell there's stuff you're keeping for yourselves. Like a secret nerd conspiracy." "The oranges in the henhouse," Ryan replied ominously. The lovely Siren stared at him. "I didn't get it." "Exactly." Ryan whistled, even as the psycho raised her gauntlet in his direction. "I still can't believe it," Felix said, crossing his arms. "Livia would never cooperate with a carnival. Something isn't right." "Things change," Shroud replied with a shrug. "And you're dating my sister," Felix added. "Somehow, I find that to be the strangest part." Ryan decided to hold off on telling him about time travel. One shock at a time. When the team reached the rift on foot with the resonator devices, Ryan froze time, purple and black particles swirling around his body. Much like when he opened a path to the black world in the previous loop, he quickly found the pocket dimension's entrance, and forcefully opened it with his bare hands. After tossing a resonator inside and keeping the other in the snow, a stream of particles formed between the two ends of the portals and slowly opened it. When time resumed, a purple portal ominously floated above the icy rift. "So?" Ryan asked. "Who goes in first?" Mr. Wave said while immediately jumping through. "Damn it." Not to be outdone, Ryan immediately followed his idol and the world around him brightened in a bright flash of purple particles. The transport lasted an instant, but the contrast between the two sides couldn't be starker. While it had been daylight in Antarctica, the other side of the portal had a black, starless sky overseeing it. Streaks of purple lightning thundered above the group's heads, while Ryan almost mistook the howling wind for screams. A foreboding structure stood alone surrounded by a vast expanse of ice which seemed to go on without end. "Yeah, such a warm, welcoming place." Ryan had received a brief vision of the alchemist's base when he tried to open the path to the purple world a few loops ago, and he immediately recognized the structure. A colossal dome of black metal emerged from the snow, with reinforced blast doors large enough to let a plane through, serving as the entrance. All in all, the structure was among the largest Ryan had ever seen, and gave the Egyptian pyramids a run for their money. Here it was. The place where it all began. Ryan might have felt a sense of wonder at the sight, but a few worrying details immediately caught his attention. First of all, the dome had been breached, with a hole more than 50 meters in diameter blown open on its left side. And from the way the metal bent, whatever explosion caused the structural damage came from the inside. Second, though Ryan noticed reinforced, stained portholes here and there, he couldn't see any light within. Third, the building's blast doors leaned on the left, as if the whole dome was sinking into the snow. And fourth. "What is this?" Len said as she crossed the portal, immediately noticing it. The dead husk of a colossal monster more than 8 meters tall laid in the snow. Ice and frost had preserved the creature's flesh, even though half its body was made of cybernetic implants. The left arm was a cannon, the right a technological blade large enough to cleave a tank in half. The creature had scales red as blood, curved horns like a bull, 3 rows of fangs, and 8 spittery eyes. A large gash had split its black armor from shoulder to the waist, letting brown alien organs spill out on the ice. When everyone except Stitch and Adam Kitten crossed the portal, the group carefully surrounded the husk, with Saren pointing her gauntlets at its face in case it would wake up. It didn't. By all measures, the monster had been dead for a while, though Ryan couldn't tell how long due to the ice. "It looks like one of Mechan's war beasts," Sunshine said. His teammate was less certain. "Mr. Wave never killed that model, and he slaughtered them all." "At least it's dead," Saren said before wiping away snow covering the monster's shoulder. "Look, on the shoulder." Leo approached the husk to provide light. A mark similar to a cross between the M letter and the Omega symbol was engraved on the monster's armor. Somehow, looking at it unsettled Ryan for a reason he couldn't explain. "What's that?" Mr. Wave asked. "A reversed W?" "I have mastered linguistics, Sifu," the panda informed Ryan, trying to help. "If I have more information, I could figure it out." "Perhaps we could hack into the implants and find out more from them," Shroud suggested. "They must have recorded what happened." "That technology is." Len shook her head. "I don't even know where to begin." "But it's not. It's not Mecrum tech," Ryan said. His own armor couldn't connect to the monster's cybernetic implants. Saren glanced at the hole in the dome. "Do you think it blew its way out? Could be a failed lab experiment. Don't you geniuses love them, eh?" "Too early to say," Sunshine replied, before taking flight. "Shroud, with me. The rest of you, try to secure the perimeter. If the alchemist still lives there, she probably noticed us." The group spread around the portal to secure it, finding the remains of old defensive turrets either broken or buried in the ice. Ryan himself had his armor's systems run an analysis of the structure, the various sensors slowly providing a larger view of the full thing. And the more the courier saw, the more he squinted. Sunshine and Mr. See-Through flew around the dome while maintaining a respectable distance. "First of all, the portholes aren't made of glass," Shroud said upon returning to the portal. "I cannot control them. And on a closer look, I do not think they are portholes at all. They look like lenses or cameras. They appear to be inactive," Sunshine added. "As for the wasteland, it loops on itself past a certain point. The defenses haven't been maintained in years," Len declared while examining a broken turret. "Whole place looks empty," Saren replied grimly. "And to be honest, it gives me the chills." Ryan glanced at the cyborg's husk. The cuts weren't clean enough for blades or lasers. Claws. Claws killed this thing. The base had been active when Ryan saw it in his visions, but not anymore. At one point, something went wrong. "Why are the doors leaning?" the panda asked with worry, the whole place intimidating him. "Because it's not a bunker," Ryan said, as his armor's readings came back with a simulation of the building. The dome was just the tip of the iceberg. A submarine's tower, hiding a larger structure buried beneath the ice. The full base was a colossal, kilometers-long war machine with great metal wings and reactors larger than most skyscrapers. It's a spaceship. Tope continued. Thanks for listening.